Welcome to our new unit on atmospheric pollution. The story of Chattanooga is one of my favorites. In the summer of 2012, that was not kind to Chattanooga, Tennessee. Dust storms in the west led to a number of poor air quality days in the city that generally was usually known for good air quality. So the Chattanooga sits along a river, the Tennessee River, and its natural basin formed in the Appalachian Mountains, one of which is Lookout Mountain, you might be familiar with. Lookout Mountain is 1,970 feet over the city. And after the Civil War, uh, lots of lots of places moved in there. Textile mills, foundries, other industrial plants were quickly built in Chattanooga, and it became like a leading manufacturing center of our nation. So the economic boom that happened in Chattanooga had a huge environmental cost. Much like Los Angeles, many other highly polluted cities are located in a bowl that is surrounded by mountains. So this geographical trap, if you will, traps pollutants that basically hover around the city. So by 1957, Chattanooga had the third worst polluted air in the entire country, and the rates of respiratory disease were well above the national average. And over the next decade, that even got even worse. And then by the 1960s, people were basically unable to see Lookout Mountain even from a distance like a quarter of a mile away. And by 1969, a U.S. survey of the nation's air quality definitely confirmed that Chattanooga was highly polluted, and their city was on the top of the worst, most polluted cities in the U.S. list. So obviously, the poor quality of air needed to be addressed, and so in 1969, Chattanooga, in conjunction with Hamilton County, created its own air pollution legislation by enhancing the Air Pollution Control Ordinance. So this ordinance put a control on the emissions of sulfur oxides in the air, and it basically allowed for open burning by permit only. And it placed regulations on odors and dust and basically outlawed visible automobile emissions entirely. It capped the sulfur content of fuel at 4%, and it limited the visible emissions from industry. At the same time, the city and county governments put in place new pollution monitoring techniques to make sure the ordinance was being followed. The city and the county governments, along with private industry, poured $40 million into this cleanup effort. Actions to improve air quality did not hinder business at the same time anyway, even though people feared that it would. But rather, it created this new industrial opportunity related to a cleanup effort and established the local manufacturing of smokestack scrubbers. As a result of all of these measures, by 1972, just 3 years had passed. Just 2 years after the Federal Clean Air Act, Chattanooga achieved compliance with the Clean Air Act almost immediately. The people of Chattanooga and the local governments recognized that keeping their air clean and maintaining economic stability would be this ongoing effort. So, to maintain their newly improved air quality, the city government and local businesses began several programs. One of the programs was a comprehensive recycling program, chosen as an alternative to their waste incinerator plan. The public and the private sector successfully partnered to achieve both environmental and economic sustainability in creating the largest municipal fleet of electric buses in the United States. And those were manufactured by local businesses. Unfortunately, while Chattanooga's efforts dramatically reduced the levels of particulate pollution and the concentration of ozone, most from automobile pollutants, even within the city limits, um, it still continued to climb. Ozone concentrations exceeded the 1997 standard by zero point zero 0.08 parts per million by volume, which is a regulation that's set by the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency. Chattanooga has responded to these new air pollution problems in the same way that faced this particulate problem in the 1960s. So, through a combined effort of government and public and local industries, the city and the governments formed what we call the Early Action Compact with the EPA. so the EAC. And they agreed to improved ozone concentrations ahead of the EPA requirements, and not being labeled as a like non-attainable area. So, like that 1969 Air Pollution Control Ordinance, this new EAC, this Early Action Compact, calls for a combined effort of private and public sectors, and it includes educating people of how we can limit ozone production in high ozone days. Chattanooga attained this zero point zero 0.08 parts per million standard in 2007. It was 2 years ahead of schedule from what the EPA wanted them to do. National legislation has since lowered the ozone standard to 0.075 parts per million. And in 2011, before the dust storms of the West, Chattanooga met the newer, even lower ozone standard. Residents know that to achieve their goals of an economically vibrant city with clean air, that they must continue to encourage cooperation between our government, our people, and our businesses. And then we also need fewer dust storms in the West, because it's all connected.